You're stuck at home in quarantine. 5 o'clock. Why not have a drink with me?
Hey everybody, hope everybody's MDW has gotten off to a good start. Mine certainly has. After enjoying a tasty cocktail to start the weekend last night, we had a nice dinner and then we watched the movie The Lovebirds, which is on Netflix, which I highly recommend. It's a cute, funny comedy movie. And it was a lot of fun. It's under an hour and a half long, so strong recommend there. And then today's been a pretty quiet day overall. Didn't do much really, just took it easy, relaxed, watched some TV. Helen and I did some puzzle for a little bit. It was chillier today, much colder. Today was actually one of those tricky days where the high temperature is like overnight, and it's just like the temperature has been taking a dive all throughout the day. We're so used to, the typical day where it gets, the sun is out and shining, and then it heats up and it gets warmer and warmer and warmer until 2 or 3 o'clock, and then slowly gets cooler. But then there's these times like today where there's different fronts moving around, or you see a more dramatic temperature drop, and so the temperature is actually just dropping over the course of the whole day. So you look at your weather report and you say, it's going to be colder today, but the high is still going to be like 66 or 68. But then you look at the hour by hour and realize that 68 degrees happened at like 1 a.m. this morning, and it's just been slowly cooler and cooler. So solidly in the 50s here in Boston. And I think for the next couple of days it'll be the same, but then we're going to approach 80 again starting on Tuesday through the rest of next week. So the warmer weather didn't quite hit us right for this Memorial Day weekend, but can't complain too much because it's just fine outside. And that's all I've got. Excited! Tonight we are going to be making Venetian Spritzes. Which you might know as an Aperol Spritz. Now, there's a notorious, somewhat controversial article that you may or may not be familiar with from the New York Times about a year ago. And the title of this article was something like, The Aperol Spritz is not a good drink. And they were throwing some serious shade on this cocktail, or this aperitivo cocktail, where the argument seemed to be that normally when you get it, one, Aperol just isn't the best aperitivo. It's a little bit too sweet, doesn't have interesting enough flavors, and then when you go and order this drink, typically they'll serve it to you with some really, really cheap Prosecco or some other cheap sparkling wine, and it ends up just being not a good drink. Now, I don't agree with that. And I think that just because a drink is poorly made in many places doesn't make it a bad drink. I think we can say the same thing probably about the old-fashioned. When you go and get an old-fashioned at your average bar, it's a terrible drink where they smash this nuclear red cherry and orange at the bottom, and then they top it with soda water and water it all down, and you get this just watery glass of bourbon. So anyway, I take issue with this, but one of the interesting follow-up points that they made is if you want to improve this drink, use better Prosecco or Champagne. Don't get the bottom of the barrel stuff, which I agree with. And then also, you can really spice it up and make it more interesting if you use different Amaros. So we're gonna go and do this now. The reason we're calling it the Venetian Spritz is that this really started in the Venetian area of Italy. Recipes for the Spritz trace back to the 1920s when they were basically mixing, at that time it was some red bitters, what they call bitters, but it's basically Aperol, Campari, all of these aperitivo amari. And they'd mix it with... at the time, they would use just still white wine and some soda water to spritz it up. And it said actually the word spritz comes from a couple decades earlier when there were German soldiers in the area, and they would ask for their wine when they're having it sprayed with a little bit of water, just to, I guess they like to drink it with a little bit of water. And anyway, the Spritz is the German word for spray, apparently. And at that time, they were using still water, and then eventually it changed to sparkling water. And anyway, the Venetian Spritz, or the Amaro Spritz, or the Aperol Spritz, or whatever you want to call it, continued to be a drink with just normal white wine and soda water until the 1990s, where it started to take off more. And no small thanks to Aperol, and Aperol with the big marketing campaign at the time, and they've since done a similar marketing campaign over the last 5 years ago. And you know, their big slogan is, it's as easy as 3, 2, 1. And the idea there is 3, 2, 1 are the proportions of the ingredients, where you take your 3 ounces of your Prosecco, 2 ounces of your Aperol, and then 1 ounce, top it off with a little bit of soda water. As easy as 3, 2, 1. There you go. The other decision you have to make when you're making your Venetian Spritz is the garnish. I think what's become popular and traditional now is just to throw a big old slice of orange in there. That's how I like it. I think it livens it all up a little bit. But what would also be traditional is an olive, with like a lot of, like when we were in Spain, they were always serving vermouths with olives, and I think in Italy they do the same thing with these aperitivo drinks. The other just thing to note when we're talking about aperitivos and digestives and amari generally is amaro is this categorization, this classification of bittersweet herbal liqueurs. Bittersweet liqueurs, mostly from Italy, but can be made all over. And in the broad definition, something like your Aperol and your Campari are definitely Amari. They're types of Amaro. And they're made the same way. There's no real reason not to classify them as each as an Amaro. But if you talk to an Italian, they'll probably say, no. Campari and Aperol are not Amaros. No, sir. Because they would say that an Amaro is something that you drink after dinner. These, despite being made in exactly the same way as the other Amari that they're talking about, these are aperitivos. You drink these before dinner. These are late afternoon drinks. And so they totally base their classification not on anything having to do with how the drink is actually made, but rather when you would drink it, which there's a certain level of, I think, quaintness to that I appreciate. So let's get to it. So I decided I am going to make 3 of these. We're going to make just a traditional Aperol Spritz using Aperol, number 1. For number 2, I was going to use a Campari and make like a Campari Spritz. I'm actually going to sub it out for this other Amaro that I have, Gran Classico, which is really, it's like a Campari substitute, made by a different company, but it has a lot of the same notes, similar alcohol by volume. Remember, Campari is sort of the big brother for Aperol. Aperol is sweeter, lower alcohol. Campari is less sweet, more bitter, and more alcohol in it. So anyway, I'm gonna just sub in the Gran Classico there. I think I want to give that a try. Been working my way through this bottle, and it's been very nice, but I want to keep going with it. And then, to make things really interesting, my third one, I'm going to use just a dark Amaro, something that the Italians would definitely classify as an Amaro. They would definitely be drinking this after dinner. But there's this whole idea, and in fact the New York Times article included a recipe for what they call an Amaro Spritz, which again, these are all using the same 3-2-1 formulation. Nobody's arguing with that, but they're saying use something a little bit more interesting, use higher quality ingredients. So I'm going to try it with the Cynar, and I'm just really interested to see how a Cynar Spritz is going to hold up with the other ingredients, and whether it doesn't go together at all, or whether you can kind of like sub in anything and then just choose your level of sweetness and bitterness based on the Amaro that you choose, which I think is pretty cool. Perfect. So I'm just going to come around here and grab my ice. Now, if you go and you get this out at a restaurant, there's a good chance that they'll give it to you in like a big, like if this were a brunch drink for you, you'd get it in like a big old wine glass, and I think that's fine, but there's something I like about I think a stemless wine glass would be really nice for this, and really pretty, but there's something I like about having just a bit of a, just a slight taper on the glass without being so bulbous. I don't know, there's something about the bulbousness that just doesn't fit with me for this drink, but maybe I'm just being weird. So you want a lot of ice. This is meant to be, again, sort of a long, refreshing drink. The whole tradition of aperitivos in Italy is that you are drinking something before dinner, that it's not high in alcohol. You can have a couple of them. You're enjoying it. You're enjoying the flavor without getting wasted before dinner time, right? Which I really like. I really like that idea. So I've got this bottle. This is actually, I am cheating a little bit. This isn't Prosecco. Instead of being Italian Prosecco, it's Spanish Cava. So my apologies there. Although I believe Cava and Prosecco are both forced carbonated. I think that's right. So like if you have champagne in France, it's made using the French champagne method, which means it's naturally carbonated. They're not like hooking it up to CO2 and carbonating it. They're letting the yeast do all the carbonation work. And a lot of the better champagnes from California do that too. But I think Prosecco by definition does not do that, and they use forced carbonation, or at least in addition to some, obviously there's fermentation from the yeast, otherwise it wouldn't be alcohol. So, in any case, this will serve us well. Helen's really into this Freixenet. That's definitely not how you pronounce it, but it is, solid cava, about $10 a bottle, pretty tasty. Not too sweet, but not too dry either. There's a brut and an extra brut. We actually usually get the extra brut, but this is just the normal brut. But I think that'll work well in this drink as a nice sort of, little bit of extra sweetness. I don't think is a bad thing. And when we were in Barcelona last summer, was that last summer? Jeez, feels like a million years ago. This was like right outside the city. We almost ended up making our way there, but it didn't fit into our schedule that time. But this is a big vineyard down there. So anyway, to Memorial Day weekend. Ba-ba-day! All right, so I'm gonna measure out the first one and then just kind of use that as a line for the next two. I don't think that's going to work out. So anyway, you want about 3 ounces of your champagne. Sorry, your Prosecco, your sparkling wine, whatever you're using. That's about good. Nice. Next, I'm going to measure out my bitters. Remember, so it's 3, 2, 1. We did the 3 with the Prosecco. Now we're going to do 2 with the aperitivos. So we've got our Aperol. Here we're doing Gran Classico, which, like I said, might as well be at Campari. The main difference between this and Campari is that Campari uses some artificial coloring in order to get that deep red color, and this doesn't. And so this has sort of like a pretty, like an amber color that's really nice, that's all natural. So that's something about this guy. And then, excited to try this. Let's do the Cynar. Cynar is definitely going to have more intenseness than the Aperol. It's going to be more bitter, but it still has a lot of sweetness to it. So that's what it's good. Perfect. Now we're going to take our soda water and just top it off with a little extra spritz. Again, because we want to make this a long drink, right? You want to dilute it out a little bit. So just 1 ounce of soda water in each of these. Lovely. And the other nice thing about these drinks is that we don't need a ton of equipment for this. We're not juicing anything. We're not, stirring or shaking. And in fact, I have the spoon here just in case I need it to give it a little stir. But I think one of the beautiful things about this drink is that you don't need to do that, because then you just take a nice big slice of orange and just give it sort of a good, put it down the side there, and give it a little agitation, and that'll take care of it for you. So there we go. And you can drink it like that, or if it has ice, sometimes I'll throw a straw in there, so we'll do that. And so here we have our 3 Venetian Spritzes, or an Aperol Spritz, and a Gran Classico Spritz, and then an Amaro Spritz, in this case Cynar, a Cynar Spritz. So cheers everybody to that. Let's snap a quick pick of these. Beautiful. All right. And let's give them a try. I think this is probably the right order to try them in. The Aperol is going to be, more sweet, less intense, less bitter. The Gran Classico has a little bit more interesting character to it, a little bit higher ABV, and then the Cynar I think is going to be the most intense. So we'll go in that order. It's just like such a summertime flavor for me. Really the mixture of it's just like nice and refreshing. You get a little bit of the orange, but really just that like sweetness and a tiny bit of bitterness from the Aperol makes it, again, New York Times be damned, a really nice drink, I think. It's really nice. Let's try the Gran Classico Spritz. Oh, so much more interesting. This is like, you don't have to think about this, You're going to drink it, you're going to like it, it's going to be good. This starts to just like have some complexity to it. And maybe you don't want complexity in your spritzes. That's an opinion that I can respect, but it's super interesting and yummy. Oh, I love that. All right, I'm not complaining about that. I might make some more of these this summer. I use Campari so much, I don't go to this bottle that much of the Gran Classico, but it really is nice to throw in there in replace of the Campari. So anyway, that might be my Spritz companion this summer. Let's try one more. Here we have a Cynar Spritz. Cheers. I actually feel like it's good, it's fine. It's like not interesting enough to move me away from the Aperol. I was expecting something a little more wow factor from the Cynar. But I think probably what's going on, that second sip was good. I think probably what's going on is Cynar is just like too well balanced of an Amaro, of the it's just like not, it doesn't have the like intense herbaceousness, or it's not like super, super bitter. And so when you mix it with like the champagne and the soda water, there's nothing that really just like comes through as something that's really interesting. Where like this Gran Classico Spritz has just some like really interesting flavors and characters in them that I think makes it just more interesting and more complex. So I think my winner today is the Gran Classico Spritz, but I think as a genre, I am excited to try all different Amaro Spritzes as the summer weather continues to heat up and warm up, and we get to try some different things. Like what would a super, super bitter Amaro look like in this, or something with like a Rabarbaro with the rhubarb flavors might be really interesting. So I think just as a classification of type of drink and something to drink throughout the afternoon or before dinner, you can't go wrong. with a good Venetian Spritz, and again, subbing in any Amaro for this 3-2-1 formulation is you're just not going to go astray. I vehemently disagree with the overall attitude of the New York Times article that we discussed, but I do think that there's something to thinking about how to use something more interesting than Aperol in your drink, and just be cautious of getting something at a bar where they're using super cheap Prosecco and put it in in a warm glass and the ice melts too quickly and suddenly you get this watery mess. Like, there's something to that. I understand that. But anyway, I will let you all go to your evenings. I now have 3 spritzes to enjoy as we go into my evening.
It's 5 o'clock. Why not have a drink with me?
Positive Helen will take one of them, so I'm not too worried about it. Hope you all continue to have a great MDW, and we will see you back here mañana.